Okay, this is July 16th. Let's have a look at BTC quickly. Now, this is 1 day, no, this is 12-hour time frame. I think that's a good way to start. Now, so this was the resistance and it dipped. I highlighted this one. Now, this bounce is something I saw today morning and I updated everyone. And it happens sometimes. It also means that this is a resistance, but then it's looking for high resistance. And in the new calculation that I have done, indicating that the new resistance is somewhere at 21,000 level, 21,000 to 22,000 range. So this is a decisive point anyway. So maybe I should not draw some additional, but keep this one. So again, so this could go all the way here around 21,700 or whatever, this range, and then react. Now, interestingly, if it is able to break above this level, well, let's say 22,000, 23,000, this S10 would be even better. But even if it is able to break above 22,000, not even this, but 22,000, which is around this actually, yeah, then the game could change surprisingly. And then I have to be neutral at that point. I'm right now leaning more towards bearish side because I see more downside. So not leaning more, but I'm on the downside actually, to be clear. But I would change my stand if it is able to break about 22 to 23K range. That's for sure. Because there is no reason to be bearish in that case. At this moment, I am, because this height is not good enough. And I would like to compare, which I mentioned, that this is like a second attempt, which I mentioned actually very early in the stage when it was like this, because I see fractals here. If you note, let me highlight. It's not each and every turn is exactly the same, but you will appreciate when you see this one. So let me highlight this. You compare this with this. There is fractal here. Okay, it's not going to be exactly the same, but then this piece of wave is comparable to this piece of wave. And then you see this attempt is something identical to this attempt. And now, then this was when it was like bounce, you remember it was like amazing, as if like it's going to, break above, and even these two were like, it's unstoppable. The pace was amazing. And so this one is not the same in terms of pace, but at least an attempt, who knows, it will try. So something like this. Oh, now this, we have to see this to break about this decisive level that I have here. So ideally S10. See, if the orange box was added for a reason, orange box was here. What you see here is just a play. It's just a game it's playing. It's a boring thing. It will make people crazy, but we will not, because we know the boundary. We know that this is noise. What you see here is just noise. Now, what I'm trying to relate is not also required, to be honest. What you need to know is whether it hits breaks below this boundary, because these are point of bounds, or breaks above this. If I want to make it very simple and clean, then you don't have to think about and try to, but because we are I'm TA, so I'm trying to give you more insight and try to relate something which happened. History not necessarily repeats the same way, but sometimes it rhymes and shows some similar pattern. So just for intellectual point of view, I'm highlighting few things, but this is not going to help you in trading. It's just TA stuff. Okay, so Long story short, right? I'll remove this again, and then this one also. But now at least you have something to compare. In short, the whole entire thing. I'll remove the orange boxes. Oops. So that's the problem. So this is just consolidation phase, this orange box, like the earlier one. Hmm. But so that's what we are tracking at a high level. That's it. I think I don't want to complicate analysis even further because there is nothing more to add, to be honest. So this bounce that you see is not enough, even if it is comes to this level is not enough, and this is where I'm expecting reaction. So we had this reaction and went down, but not deep enough. It didn't make new low. So this is like a trend line. The trend line is tricky thing. It can be this or this or this, whatever. It's just a visual. It's not that you draw a line and decide this is where I'm going to exit. This trend line that you see is for reference. It's not for decision. It's like more visual clue that it gives that, okay, now you know what, I want to know the angle of the wave, then let me draw a line. But it's not that if it dips, then oh, it's breaking down. If it was so simple, nobody would lose that trade, right? So it is not that simple. So you can draw a line to understand that which level to be defended, but it doesn't mean that it breaks below like this one. It means you get out. So this is how it is. Usually horizontal lines are better. So you draw more like a horizontal line from this one if this is the important one, and that's what you will try. But sometimes even it could go down all the way here and bounces. So trading is tricky. Anyways. So that's 12 hours. One day is not going to be different. Let's look at 1 week now. 1 week, we should use the Bitstamp. We have different drawing there. This one. Here's my Bitstamp. Okay. So compared to last week, the last week was we were here. It made this. Okay, it touched this. So in short, it's doing nothing for last 4 weeks. We can say that. Yeah, it's a range bound. Look at this one, range bound. It's doing nothing for last 4 weeks. Right? So, and something like this, it's not the same, but something like this, it bounced and for 3 weeks it did nothing earlier phase, and this is more or less the same thing. So even this pattern is kind of similar, but if it breaks above last week's high, now if we think from a candle point of view, which is around 20,400, which is 22 23k range, then things could change. And this is 17k is a strong support. Right? And that's why actually it's a two-edged sword. It's a strong support. That means one can be hopeful once the certain level is broken above, then one could be hopeful that it will go for a recovery. Not a recovery requires a lot higher level, but point at least there is no new low, immediate low we could think of, and then everything will rally at least for a few weeks. Um, because this has been going down for many weeks. So there can be relief rally from here on, not necessarily trend reversal. And that's something we can look forward if 22, 23k is broken above. Because 17k is such a strong support. It's actually good and bad. The good in a way that we can expect it to uh, get a good bounce out of this, and a bad because if it is broken, then there is nothing major to support until 13k or 10k. 13k I have it, but then it's more about 10k. So that's why 17k is kind of a two-edged sword in my opinion. So again, I would not complicate a thing, and I would say this is our boundary on Bitstamp. Let's say this is simply last week's. I would just draw this one, a bigger box like this. And if it is able to break above this box, then we can expect it to go much higher in this range and hit this sign line, because this was a breakdown point. So asset tends to reach to that. This is a typical pullback scenario we could expect. In that case, it could go up to the sign line like this. Oh, so right. So this is a bullish case, and if bearish is some, if this is broken, if the support is broken, it could land here, but I think it could go all the way here. But let's say 13K is a checkpoint. So I would not draw all the way, but potentially it could go down. It's very simple. I think we don't need to complicate this thing. It's this is extremely simple. So we have this upper bound, lower bound in this one. That's it. So you may say that at least. So that's why it's very hard to trade any alt at this moment, because in that zigzag wave that you saw on a lower time frame from BTC, when it goes up, it brings up everybody. When it goes down, it brings down everybody, and that's why it's um, so chaotic for a trader, because alts are not very few alts which would move some diverge, but not necessarily diverge for long time. So that's another challenge. Very few coins which would go against BTC, but not consistently. And also their movement is so much, sometimes it's difficult to trade. So it's a tough environment for sure. So that's why even alts are very hard to trade. I would say if somebody is not in hurry, I would say this is no trade zone. Means one could remain sideline and say what happens at 22K, um, and then decides what's next. 21, 22K range, right? Then decide what to do next. That can be an approach, not an advice, because at this moment, there is no definite move direction. It's going to be very short term. So another alternative is somebody's online and able to track online, then it's doable for, but it not necessarily you buy something and go offline for many hours and then come back. No, it's not the environment. Sometimes if the liquidity is very low, even if you put stop loss, you may not be able to exit fully if your coin is not having enough volume. So that way, what I was doing is, before go to the bed, I would close my position no matter what. Even if I'm in profit, I would close my position because I don't know what is going to happen overnight. Yeah. So that can be an approach, because as I said, um, each day I would try to get something rather than try and hold for a long time. This is not the phase where you would do. Shorting was an opportunity, long-term shorting yesterday, but and it could come again in next few days. Now I'm thinking that the way it is behaving, it wants to stay until the Fed meeting comes. I'm just logically thinking today is July 16. It could extend this kind of a movement for next 10 days until the meetings, because that's where Fed is going to decide whether it's a 75 basis point or even aggressive. And if market could decide based on what Fed decides, of course another data they we may. This is my hunch, the way it is behaving, because if it had to go down, probably yesterday was a good day for it to go down. So the way it bounced in last few hours, telling me that it wants to buy in more time. So it is going to decide, but not before FOMC meeting, in my opinion. I mean, it's very hard to say this is the date when it is going to go down or up. But logically speaking, that's how it looks like. Right? Otherwise, it's very hard to say that. I mean, we'll stick to our levels, that's for sure. But if I want to add timeline, probably that's the timeline. So FOMC meeting is I think it's on 26th or 27th or 28th, 2 days out of this last week, basically last week of the month. So I think that's how it looks like. Right. Let's change. Look at all the active coins quickly. Now, what we are going to focus is the progress, because and ultimately BTC is going to drive the price, right? So that's how. So Atom is here, not much of progress compared to last week. AVAX more or less the same, like BTC chart. You could see BNB more or less the same. If you don't change, you would not. If you just look at it, you would not know it's a BNB or AVAX actually. Oh my goodness, look at this. This is this is identical copy. Interesting. Even this is same. Look at that. They're not going to do anything different because active coins are usually the coins are which go along with BTC. So that's why Doge is more or less the same. Dot made new low, but not really quite close to spiked. So it's more or less the same. EGLD was showing strength yesterday, but not quite able to keep up. But they're more or less the same. Ethereum was showing strength as well. That's what something I think Ethereum was on backseat during this downturn, whether it was even doing worse than BTC. But what I'm seeing for last 2 days, or not, I would not say 2 days, but in last 24 hours, I would say this, I see new energy in Ethereum, and that is, I don't know what is happening, but it looks like Ethereum is leading at this moment from a top market cap coins, among the top market cap coins. I can see the energy here. So you would like to focus on Ethereum in my point of view. File more or less flat, nothing more. Flat, flux, FTM more or less flat. So we have this scenario. Let's see. Gala is weak. It's leaning more on the downside. There's no bounce. HNT flat, as you could see. Too much of here. KCS is much better, but yeah, if you look at it, it's more or less the same. There's nothing. This is also the same. I'm looking for something which is different. No, nothing. Same. Similar. Right? This is different animal now. Very different animal. It's unpredictable. So I'll just park this one because I may throw this away. This is sideways. Matic is the only one here which showing the strength compared to all. So compared to all, so far Matic is number one. You look at this. It is really making progress and leading. We may say leading. Not Ethereum, but Ethereum is showing sign in 24 hours, but Matic is even before. So very interesting move for Matic. I'm expecting reaction here. So there's a potentially good 30% move, provided BTC doesn't go up. That's always underlying assumption. One, not bad. RNDR flat. There's nothing much you can expect. Move this, but somewhere here. Sand is showing some strength here. Sand, right? So this is it wants to go up. This is also not bad, but flat. This is also flat. Stop by this level. So still, they're kind of preparing for a bounce, or you may say preparing for the drop. It all depends on what BTC would do, in my opinion. They are like moving sideways in a range bound manner, same as BTC. So except Matic, there's nothing I could find which is telling that it wants to go on. So that's the situation right now. Now, apart from the active list, there can be some coins which I highlight on ad hoc. But now I'm feeling that even posting ad hoc, I feel like I'm not doing justice sometimes, because the challenge with ad hoc is if I post something, I cannot be 24/7 watch that coin. So, and the reality, as I mentioned, is the coin is unpredictable in terms of they would, like VGX, that they moved up for 24%, and after a few hours, nothing, lost everything. And it happened with few coins I saw. So when I post something, they do go up, sometimes 5%, sometimes 50% of, I mean 15% or even more. But how can I stick to that coin and watch and update? There's no way to do it unless you have something indicator or something, because there's no way to figure it out that it's dipping. So that's my challenge with the current market. So that's why I'm just thinking that probably I will not post anything on ad hoc unless BTC decides something, because the success rate is not so good recently on ad hoc. It is not about TA, it's about the market, in my opinion, because there's no way to update uh, once I post the coin. That's the challenge. And it's annoying. That's the situation. I would rather stick to active list coin, maybe, and maybe ad hoc coins, some little experiments. That's for sure. But I think it's tough otherwise. Yeah. So let's see how next 10 days goes. By the time, anyway, we will have one more weekly before that. So I'll keep you posted on BTC daily as usual. Let me know if you have any question. I'll end this session here. Thanks, everyone.